Welcome back, friends. And after being away from the studio, there was all kinds of crazy things going on in here this morning. When I first started playing around with the noodles, I was like, what is going on? It sounds off, and I couldn't get two keyboards talking to each other properly. And then finally I realized what was happening. I had taken one keyboard and tuned it to 432. I was noodling along with some of Jason's material before I went to Solar Return Festival. And so I had one in 432 and one in 440, and it was making all kinds of cacophony. And of course, we couldn't get the stream started this morning because I had done a stream from another location for the promo yesterday. I'll just play that promo for you. How about that? Because it was very amusing. I did a little stream with Ceiling Fan Man last night. It is always fun indeed to do a little heart to heart with Ceiling Fan Man. Often we do it on Sunday evenings in between Sola Scriptura. We do sort of scriptural. But Ceiling Fan Man, your friend and mine, not the one we want, but the one we deserve, I suppose. Anyway, he's begun a new Friday night series. So 8 o'clock on the West Coast, and make sure and catch that on Ceiling Fan Man 2 channel right now. And I'll show you, this is one of the best promos I've seen. It was better than the show, which is often the case, I think. When you get really good movie trailers, and then you go, but it's probably not worth seeing it. We've seen all we need, but this is pretty awesome.
Legal or medical advice. All footage taken and used from public sources falls under fair use of Digital Millennial Copyright Act of 1998. Therefore, no breach of privacy or copyright has been committed.
The Great Baldini, Ceiling Fan Man, coming together for one night only. This Friday at 8 p.m. It'll blow your mind. Don't miss it. If you miss it, the world may never be the same. Don't forget to join the greatest minds. Well, at least two people want to talk about things in one night only. An explosive event. Watch it now before YouTube decides to take it down.
Satellite transfer complete.
And of course, yeah. So if you haven't gotten the opportunity to check that out, I would suggest. Let me copy this. I'll post it in the chat, and you can go see that before they take it down. But not now. Wait until after we're done. You don't want to miss this episode. In fact, the next couple of episodes. Oh dear, what am I doing here? I was playing a game with that. All right, what are we doing here? Okay, so as you probably know, just came back from the Solar Return Festival in South Kakalaki. Had a wonderful time. There's been all kinds of streams about that. People who were there, it just had an enormous emotional impact, and I think it's going to be a minute before we all fully process it. It has been so overwhelming. I hear much of the same from just about all the attendees, which is along the lines of, it's amazing. I love it. Yeah, that's about all we can get out right now. Well, especially me, because all the gummies. It became legendary. Yeah, I don't know, 15 gummies and 6 cups of green buttered coffee on Friday, and 75 gummies and some mushrooms on Saturday. I told you I was going to have more fun, didn't I? Well, it was fun. In fact, it was super, super duper fun. I even got to play a little bit with Chief Pro. I asked him how he wanted to be introduced, and he told me, and he said, hey, you want to come up and play? I was like, yeah. Yeah, sure. So let's see if I can find a little bit of that to share with you. And I promise this is all going somewhere. Let's see. Come over here with this. And what do we got here?
Stack 'em, squash 'em. Stack 'em.
Is he meowing? No, he's awesome. That's Chief Crow, and I am now an official, or at least an honorary, flat earthworm, and something I will wear with pride for the rest of my life. In fact, he and I have been talking since then, and I got to tell you, with Ceiling Fan Man and some other folks here, I think we're going to try to put together a Flatober West. And so Chief Crow is a super great guy. If you're not familiar with him, check out his channel. You can find Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms. Great musician and a terrific guy. And so, anyway, so what I kind of wanted to get to, I'll get all the way back here, is the conversations that we had at this event. And again, we have so many people to thank. First and foremost, of course, Karen B. For putting the whole thing together. Nathan at Commercial Sound and Video, just knock it out of the park every time. No matter what is going on, he's got it handled. So we have an amazing amount of confidence in him. But overall, again, the quality of people is so amazing. And one of the things that I mentioned to just about everybody since coming back is on Friday afternoon, seeing all the people up at the park. And it struck me how despite the fact that the media is trying to portray those of us who do not accept the mainstream narrative, which, I mean, again, if you just, for all practical purposes, if you just look at it and go, why would they have any reason to do anything but lie? It's in their best interest to do so. And so accepting it at face value, Melanie Moran, hey, great to see you, my friend, and you're awesome. Again, it's in their best interest to lie. It's they're running it as a business and a control mechanism. So of course they're going to lie. But those of us who do not buy the lie then are treated as a pariah in society. And of course, we're outcast. And that's one of the reasons that I put together this channel to begin with, is the conversations that I was having with people as part of the Awakening Project led me to understand that the biggest obstacle facing us in some ways was not just the lies, but the isolation. And what a great job the powers that be have done in isolating us and ostracizing us, and to make people feel crazy, right? That's what they do. Anyway, so the people that I was meeting, every single one of them are people that you would very much want to have as your next door neighbor, a coworker, a friend. These are the best people I've ever met, and we're being categorized as domestic terrorists. That's remarkable. I met so many great people. Some of them had seen again since Flatoberfest. And what I think one of the things that struck me as well was how many people I met that are regular. They join us regularly every weekend, and yet we don't see them much in the chat. They're just quiet, or they listen to the replay and then don't comment much or haven't sent me an email. And so, I don't really know them. But in some ways, I feel like I've known them forever, right? You meet and it's like, oh man, you're just right on the same page. Well, one person that you know and have been familiar with probably in our chat, more than once, is Plateau. I hope I get that right. Good morning, my friend. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. And yourself, sir?
You know what? It was better than can be expected under the circumstances, my friend. Anyway, this is a guy who I met. I think did we meet at Flatoberfest? Did we briefly meet then? Did you come by for a cup of coffee? No. Okay.
I didn't make it to Flatoberfest. I lamented missing that for many months.
As did I the previous one, or the previous couple of conferences, right? People had such good things to say about it, but I feel like everything came in the perfect time, right, for me, and I'm so glad that you made it. But we shook hands and exchanged pleasantries, and then I just looked in this guy's eyes, and I'm like, yeah, he gets it. And so I wanted to pick your brains a bit, and you were kind enough to say yes to that. I know this is unusual for you, and you have not to this point been really vocal about your stuff. But well, let's back up a bit. Tell us who you are, right? and a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, and we're just going to walk through your own awakening process, if you would, sir.
Okay, very well. Well, folks would know me from our YouTube chat family as Plateau, and my name is Patrick Nash, and I live on the Cumberland Plateau in East Tennessee for a little over 25 years now, native to the southeast of the U.S., but I've traveled all over this side of the country. And I grew up a Bible believer, but never really embraced much in the way of church. I came to my flat earth realization in the latter part. I think it was the beginning of October 2017. So I'm newer on the block than a lot of the folks in the community. And I feel like even though I've got a number of videos on my channel, maybe a dozen or so, I've been called to become a little more vocal and put myself out there and share information and things that I've found. Perhaps others have found the same. Perhaps it's something they might want to look at.
Yeah. Okay. So your background, again, you said you grew up in church, Bible believer, denomination. I mean, again, anything that you're not comfortable with, let me know. But just trying to get a sense of the background. So denomination?
And all over the place, really. The family was Baptist, Pentecostal. But in my adult life, I was more aligned with the Methodists.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so standard sort of evangelical upbringing, and then a little bit closer to the more messianic Torah movement sort of thing that way. Okay. Fair enough. And then, so what led you on this process of a discovery, of changing your paradigm? For many, I know, of course, it was the events on that fateful September day, some 20 years ago. But what was the door for you?
Well, I've always been at least somewhat conspiracy minded. Why was my favorite question from very early on, a toddler. In fact, I got the moniker Curious George as a child because I always question everything. Why? Well, why? And I kind of late 80s was kind of a beginning. I served 4 years in the military, and that was kind of an eye-opener in itself. And about 2008, I installed the Kenyon. That was kind of a turning point. That's sort of when we started making steps towards preparing to fend for ourselves in a rural setting, to provide for ourselves. But more recently, the election cycle of 2016 turned the television in about 2009.
Okay, hang on just a second, Patrick. Patrick, hang on a second. You're starting to break up a little bit. So slow down for me just a bit. Let's back up to the 2008 area, and let's try that again. If we continue to struggle, I'll just call you right back, okay? But we're breaking up just a little bit, and I want to make sure that everybody can hear you because it's important. So 2008, there was an event there, and I didn't quite catch it. So you want to repeat that part?
Yes, and the 2008 was the election cycle, and they ended up installing the Kenyon. That's how I refer to Obama becoming president. I gotcha.
Okay.
And that was sort of a wake up. That made me think that perhaps that elections weren't as
described.
We thought.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. So go ahead.
I was going to say that 2012 was kind of a confirmation of that as well. And then the election cycle of 16 that was such a crazy fiasco that it really made me, at that point, that's when my digging became in earnest.
You know, it's interesting for many people. Like I said, the events of that day 20 years ago. For some, that was it, right? For me, it was much earlier. In fact, than that, my dad had given me a copy of a book called The Unseen Hand in 1984 that laid out completely the New World Order. In fact, before they even spoke openly about it. It was, in fact, when George W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush Sr., had used it in his 1991 speech of September 11th. To say, New World Order, I almost pissed myself, right? I was like, oh, here we go, right? And I didn't appreciate at the time the glacial pace at which they previously operated up until this year. But I find it interesting that for many people, it was one of these big events or some fake, disingenuous distraction designation event. But for my wife, and who was the first person that I knew, and also for you, it was the election process. She had begun to suspect as early as the early 2000s that there was a problem there, and that was her door into the rabbit hole was politics. I find it interesting. You're the second person I know for whom that was the doorway into the rabbit hole. Interesting. So,
well, I just felt like something was wrong, and that perhaps that we were nearing our end of the age, as the churches had talked about through the years. And I thought, well, where are we on the timeline? And I want to find out. So I began turning rocks over in every direction I could think of.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the early rocks that you turned over? What areas did you look at? Sounds like you went to Scripture to start with, and among other things. So, yeah, just walk us through that process.
Well, of course, looking at the big pharma type stuff, we are growers of plants and herbs and believe in and use herbal medicine. So there was the pharmaceutical aspect, mm-hmm. and then, but my focus was primarily on trying to gather as much information from those who taught about end times prophecy. So I listened to maybe, a couple of dozen different folks who were explaining Revelation. And so mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time in Revelation and listening to people that were expounding on that book.
Interesting. Because, again, it's just observations here as we go along. But for many people who come into the, down this rabbit hole, they get there later, right? They walk through this and they finally come to the conclusion like, holy crap, what chapter of Revelation are we in this week? And they resist for a very long time. The idea that we could be at the end of an age, and many want there to be a new age, right? To coin a phrase. But again, it sounds like what you did was go straight to the end, sort of like a ceiling fan man. It's like, oh, let's go to the end and see. We're all the way here at the end. Interesting. And what did you come to in your research there? I know that was a topic that eschatology was something I really deeply studied. Well, again, in that late 80s period, learning about the New World Order and what was upon us, that was a big one for me. And before I get to where I came to it on that, what did you come to in your study?
Initially, several years back, I felt like that we were approaching the time of Jesus' return. But as I continued to dig, I realized that it's very possible that near term is more of a ruse, and that it's at least a few decades out from everything that I've been able to determine more recently, say in the last year. But several years ago, the level of discernment was different, so you're not sure exactly what information to take as gospel, if you will.
Yeah, right.
So, right. Well, and then even 3 or 4 years ago, I wasn't really knowledgeable of the idea of there being as much controlled opposition and gatekeepers out there as there are.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last, say, year or so, I have become much more aware and discerning about those types of avenues or ministries or speakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is certainly one thing that I cannot overstate is the need for good discernment among any researcher, but even those who are sort of let's say couch sitting researchers, if you will, those that kind of just sort of sit back and look at the information that others have dug up. It does seem as again, I have often said that absolute certainty is the imminent domain of frauds and fools, right? That the more you know, if you really understand it, then the more you realize that there's very few things that you can say with absolute certainty, right? That the best you can do is be go with the preponderance of evidence and be fairly well convicted to your own level of your own threshold of belief or whatever you want to call it, but always open to new information. And when I see people who are very, very certain, especially in these areas, that always makes me back up real hard, real hard. Again, I noted that was one of the things that I think I just intuited about you, right? Is that you were of an age, let's say it that way, that you have the look in your eyes again of a guy who's cautious and considers things pretty deeply before taking next steps. Although you're not unwilling to move quickly if that's a necessary thing. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, I would say that is correct. And we, and where the historicist eschatology is concerned, well, let's compare it to my flat Earth revelation. I felt moved for months to go and speak with this particular individual. And I put it off. He's a truck driver, so it's hard to catch up with him. But I finally did, and I told him, I said, I feel like there's some reason I'm supposed to come talk to you, but I have no idea what it is. And he said, I've been waiting on you. So I went over, and he introduced me to the idea of biblical cosmology, we'll say. Mm-hmm. And I took that on quite readily because it really filled in some gaps of questions that I had through the earlier times of my life, things that didn't add up, and that added up. And so I came home in 3 days with a Bible and a concordance, and I was able to change my worldview in 3 days. But
faster than
where
me. Keep going.
But compare that with the eschatology. And I've been taught this one way. We're all, waiting for 7 years of tribulation and the revealing of the man of sin and all of these futurist eschatology things that we're waiting for them to come to pass. And it took me probably a solid 8 or 9 months of really looking at the eschatology very closely and looking at numerous resources before I could change that paradigm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that particular paradigm that you changed, so what did that look like? You said early on you expected it to be a few decades out. Has that changed in the past couple of years?
Well, no. Earlier on, and even still today, many of the Christians are on the edge of their seat. They're waiting for the rapture, or they're
right.
waiting for Jesus' imminent return. And my research and the research of those people who are what we would consider historicists. They put the return at decades out. So I'm more of a mind of that.
Yeah, my take at this point, it looks like this, right? That never before in history has things been so well set up for those things that are laid out in Revelation and Daniel, capable of being completed, right, to close the circuit. And so if you want to say that the dominoes are lining up, never before, to my view, have we been in a situation where those dominoes are aligned in such a way that it doesn't really take much. And so I come back to, man, I don't know, right? It could be really fast. I mean, what we've seen in the last year has been exceeded my expectations on how, I mean, it's like a decade worth of stuff that they did in a year. So I come back to, I don't know, right? I just always want to be prepared. But I'm not, neither am I an alarmist. Right, I'm not going to run out and go, the sky is falling, right? Because that just makes you look dumb, right? And again, I don't know, and so I just I don't want to be caught unaware, right? I don't want to be caught sleeping, certainly, but neither am I, again, an alarmist. I'm not running around. I don't know. I keep an eye on it, right? But I do think that it could go much faster than I anticipate. But I'm kind of on the with you, right? That it could be some time. But I still, even at my age, I anticipate that I will see some of the major events take place during my life. Maybe. I mean, I don't know, right? I don't know, but it feels like it.
I think that we are seeing things happen, but I'm not wholly convinced that they're organic. I
gotta agree with that.
am leaning towards them being contrived.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Most of what we see happen around us is scripted and not in any way organic. So yes, I agree that there could be part of the delusion, right? Could be setting things up to be a caricature of, right, or an image of what's shown there. So yeah, it is hard to know, right? It is hard to know with certainty. And this is where I kind of, again, for me, I always come back to the relationship aspect. In fact, I put, much to the discomfort of many people within religious communities, I put my relationship even above written scripture. Because it can come into conflict at times. I mean, look at the story of Abraham. Certainly, we would say that according to written scripture, the idea of human sacrifice, right? God has some very harsh things to say about people who make their children run through the fire, right, or sacrifice them to God. So the fact that he asked that of him would have been a quick no, right, by looking at scripture, and yet it was his willingness to do so in faith. Right, that was imputed to him as righteousness, from which the entire outgrowth of the covenant, right, is what we would call it, came from. Right, so from my perspective, having that direct relationship is of higher importance in many ways than even, well, certainly more than a religion, right, which looks to the scripture at all times for the answers. Now, again, I find that there's certainly authority in scriptures and certainly supernatural power. I don't think there's any question to me and for those who regularly read it, right, that there is supernatural power. It is the living word, if you want to say. Even if you take into account Mandela effects or anything else, there certainly is a power there that is unequaled, in my estimation, from any other written source. But again, for me, the conversations that I have with Pops are far more enlightening in many ways, although he many times will point me back to Scripture, right, to confirm what he's already told me. And that becomes, double confirmation. Yeah, it's to this degree, right? I think that many people, if they stick too closely to the idea of parsing Scripture, I mean, so you've been probably more closely involved with the Messianic type groups than have I. On the peripheral, I know some people who are involved in it. I've been on the kind of periphery a number of years ago, and there's a lot of parsing of words and going back into meanings of words and how they're interpreted and that sort of thing. There's a lot of that goes on, especially as it relates to rule keeping, the laws, that sort of stuff. What's your kind of your views on that, Patrick? And what's your sort of experience with that group? Would you say you're still fairly closely aligned with that kind of with that view of things, or what's your take on that?
Or you're referring, you say Messianic, are
right.
you using that word as sort of a Hebrew roots Torah observant group
That's
of people.
That's what I'm more getting to, not the actual Jews who become Messianic Jews, but yeah, more of the Hebrew roots sort of view of things. Yeah.
Okay, and I maybe you misheard me earlier.
Perhaps.
I spent a number of years in the Methodist church.
Oh, Methodist. Okay, I thought you said Messianic. Okay, that's okay. I was. That's my bad, because I thought I heard you say that. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I could get that, certainly going from evangelical to, getting more into the Torah of Hebrew roots sort of thing. So, yeah, no, I get it now. I did mishear you because you were breaking up.
I did mention that I have a shofar that might have led you to believe that.
Might have given me the impression.
I feel like that was sort of more of a call to watchmen, like Ezekiel 33 is what that's about.
Yep.
But I've looked at the Hebrew roots Torah movement numerous times, and I've never really just been able to say, no, I can't go there, because their presentation of argument, one particular channel called Kingdom in Context, Sean Griffin out of Colorado, and he does an excellent job at explaining, and I can't discount it wholly. I really have no disrespect or disdain for any folks who want to follow that path. I'm not fully persuaded that that's the path that I need to be on, but I don't discount it at all.
I'm right there with you, to an extent, right? Which is that I think anybody who wishes to serve Dad the best way that they can, and doing it from a spirit of gratitude, right? And not from, here's always the danger for me about the rule keeping stuff, right? Is that you think you're going to do extra. And my understanding, again, of the gift of Jesus is that it requires nothing extra, because there's nothing extra you can do. And when you attempt to do that, it brings pride into the situation, and you start to compare yourself to others, and I'm doing it right and you're not doing it right. And again, I'm not putting that on anybody in particular, because I do look at what they're, again, like as you said, what they're saying. And I don't have a problem with wanting to do all the things Dad said. Right? If that's what you feel called to do. I tend to lean more toward Paul and say all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. Right? And that if I live in the law of the spirit of truth and life, that directs me in all things. And at times it does direct me to I would say keep some of the, like Sabbath. Right? I'm big on the Sabbath keeping thing, but in the right context. Again, not as a legal mandate, but what Jesus said. Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. He set a play date, right? He set up a weekly date and said, hey, I'll meet you on this day if you want to come. I'm down with that, right? If he blessed it and sanctified it and made a better day to meet with him, man, I'm 100% down with that, right? Doing it as a legal requirement, again, anytime I get into that legality stuff, I just go, man, the one character in this whole play that seems to be the lawyer is the enemy. He's the one making the legal arguments, right? And so I'm very cautious of that. But I'm with you. I can't, discount or denigrate anybody who feels like that is the right path for them. I always back up a bit when people say the right path for me is thus the right path for you. Right? That's where I kind of go, I mean, I would encourage others to try the path that I've taken, which is to get in a relationship with Dad, because I've seen the positive results. Do I have anything to say negative about those who don't? No, other than I feel like you're missing out. I would want better for you. Right? I feel like there's a positive aspect to it, certainly. But is it my place to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do or how they should live their life? Man, it's not my prerogative at all. Right. So
and that's one thing that tends to give their movement a bad name, is the fact that so many of them want to foist that upon others.
Yep.
But there are a lot of people that are followers of that Torah that are very sweet, kind, knowledgeable, very spiritual, people that I like spending time with.
Absolutely.
But there are those that are too aggressive with it, and that I think gives their movement a bad name.
Well, I find it, Patrick, to be kind of a mixed bag. I mean, I think this is true a little bit with just about any group or any belief that people have, very strongly held beliefs, is that some are comfortable just keeping it to themselves, and others really think that everybody needs to take on their views. And whether that is, as you say, I've encountered kind of a mixed bag in that group. Some that are just super, super great people, and others that, as you say, are really pushy. But isn't that true, again, even with Flat Earth, right? Or with any of the truth aspects, or even, again, politics or just about anything else, when they have that, conversion moment, right? Some people get excited and they want to share it with others. I understand it. But there are others who take it to a degree of, you're the worst, you're missing out, and even, you're going to burn in hell for eternity if you don't do the things that I say. And as I was, saying last night on with Ceiling Fan Man, right? What I see, what Jesus said was not that they'll know you're my followers if you have perfect eschatology, or if your soteriology is spot on, right? Or any aspect of your dogma is perfect. No, what he said was, right, that they'll know you're my followers because you love one another. And I was like, wouldn't it be great if in our community people recognized us not for the information that we have, but for the way we treat one another, right? And for more so, not even just people within our community, which I love stepping up and helping out. I love to be able to help people out in our community by the support of others. But even more so, if we can take that up a notch and be kind and loving to those who are hostile to us. Wouldn't it be great if we were known for that instead?
And perhaps we can be. We do have great love among each other in our group, and we do need to extend that to others. And that's for, I think, people in the truth community, a lot of people who've been in it for a number of years, they are coming to that realization that we need to not have animosity towards the sheep, if you will, but we need to pray and hope, pray for them and hope that we, by example, can help them to have the scales fall off.
Absolutely. And again, it says in Scripture, right, that it's your kindness that brings us to repentance. And I've seen that play out over and over again. And I've seen, again, it's been my experience, right, that I have a pet troll bot. Yes. Oh, you don't even know. Yeah, no. But it's been again, my experience that people respond very negatively to being hostile. Right? If you come at them and put them on the defensive, it just simply doesn't work out very well. But if you have something that they desire or are interested in, right, that they will come and ask you questions, and that seems to be the best way, I guess, to expose or exposit, I suppose, some of these things, is to get people interested, right? Like for us, and I think you would know this as well as anybody, that you have to come to this information on your own. No one can hand it to you. I mean, they can try, but you're going to disagree with it, right? And then you'll dismiss it if you think it's wrong. But you have to come to it on your own and ask questions. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I apologize to whoever said this. I don't recall, but it's a quote. The truth cannot be told. It must be realized.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so it would be incumbent upon those in the truth movement to have as much information available and have a ready answer for anyone who asks questions, right? But to that degree, wait for those who ask the questions, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And it's so... if you can be ready with those answers when people ask the questions, then stand a much better chance of helping people to have the scales fall off their eyes, as it were. And I mean, that's such a good it's such a good metaphor, right? Is the scales on your eyes, because it is so true, I think, for those of us who have had that veil fall and that we can see it. It is like you have been living in a fantasy world, right? When you buy the lies that they sell, it is a hypnosis. It's a kind of spell. And when the spell is broken, you just can't. There's just no part way in it.
Yes, and what you just outlined is a biblical principle. We are to be prepared to give any man an answer, and then that's a lot of people take that as just, you're prepared to provide them the information on the gospel, but the Holy Spirit will lead you into all truth. And there's so many other things that are lies that, we need to uncover. You say we're not necessarily getting to the truth, but we're uncovering the lies, but at least we're preparing ourselves to give those answers, and we're being led to be able to see through the lies. So
Agreed.
We're prepared to give an answer not only about the Bible and the gospel, but also about things in the world that pertain, to all living people.
Yep. And I always refer back, especially these days, to the words of Jesus, and he spoke them many times. He said, "Be not deceived. Take care that you are not deceived." He says it's important, like the most important thing I can tell you, don't be deceived. And it is for this cause he will send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. And I think that is certainly one of the things that we see around us right now, whether that is whatever page of Revelation we happen to be on, is that we see the results of that warning right now. Is that so many people are deluded, and I do mean deluded, again, under a magic spell. It is, they cannot see clearly, right? They literally are under a hypnosis. So when they say, squawk like a chicken, they squawk like a chicken. When they say wear 3 masks, they wear 3 masks. And they're mad at anybody who doesn't. And that's the remarkable, it's the remarkable thing for those of us who are not under the spell as we watch it with just some bemusement, but it's just shock, right, of watching it. Brian Staveley is one of the funniest to watch, as he's just in shock at people around him going, what is going on here? It is remarkable when you see people driving with 2 masks on in their car by themselves. It's like, the only way that's of use, presumably there was a pathogen, is that you stole the car. What is going on? But yeah, it is like watching a stage hypnosis, right? Where they say, squawk like a chicken, bark like a dog, and they do it, and they have no idea, right? They just don't know. And it's a remarkable thing to watch in, again, some bemusement and some horror. I don't even know. And I think that this is where compassion comes into play, right? Is to understand that they're not your enemy. They may treat you like the enemy, but it's because you're challenging their beliefs, right? And so their beliefs define them. And so if you say your beliefs are wrong, you're saying you are wrong, and then you're not good, right? That's how they're taking it. Because as you can see very clearly, people identify those things together. If you're not on my team, you're my enemy. And we've come to this place of polarization in society where they have fed that nitroglycerin, if you will, to everybody, that they're so volatile that if they get triggered, right, if someone shows any inkling that they're not 100% with the program, they're kicked right out. Right, so you could be completely along with the entire agenda, from rewilding to every form of psychosocial programming available, and you say, "But Second Amendment," and they will kick you. They will throw you right out of the airlock. Oh dear, and that's cult behavior.
I agree. That's you said the strong delusion. I'd done a couple of scriptures as comparison. Crow always says the belief is enemy of knowing, and that 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 11, he'll send them a strong delusion that they will believe a lie.
Yep.
And you compare that to John 8:32. And Jesus says, you will know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a big difference between believing and knowing. And I think that, to me, my understanding, I mean, without getting too deep into the religious aspects or whatever, right? But the idea of faith is that the word there is an action. It's a verb. It is very much like when you, it's an expectation. When you flip on a light switch, you expect it to happen. It's a knowing, right? You just know, versus a hope or oh, just have faith, honey. Oh, sweetie, just have faith. It's a very, very different thing. I mean, and I have come over time. It's a very long period of time for me, but in my relationship with the Creator, it is not just a belief, right? It is a knowing, because you know the person over time, that the quality and the intimacy of the relationship, I know that I can trust them, right? With my very life. And like I say over and over, though they slay me, yet I will trust them, because it is serves something greater. And I noted this in our conversation with Ceiling Fan Man last night, is that we often are unhappy with the circumstances that surround us. Certainly these days, it's a very uncomfortable set of circumstances. And yet, largely because we put ourselves in the first person, we think it's happening to us. And the thing is, it's just happening and we're in it. Right. And so how we choose to deal with that really is on us, and the lens through which we choose to view it. And for me, that lens is always going to be, at least for the last 20 plus years and more, that lens is always through the context of my relationship with Dad, that it's his world and I'm in it. And if I choose to be with him, I'm going to be in the right spot.
Well, you said what lens that you look at it through. The uncomfortability should be looked at as refining by fire. There is reason the gem cannot be polished without friction,
yeah.
And we are going through a process, and we feel it. It's uncomfortable. It can be difficult at times, but there's a reason. And on the other end of it, these trials are going to strengthen us for something else that's coming down the line.
Agreed. I agree. Yeah, all the stuff that we've been talking about. I've told the story about the burden that I had, and Dad said, don't ask for the burden to be lightened, right? But that you have more strength to carry it. And I was just reading where it says that discipline is never easy. No one likes being disciplined, but it's what's required, right, to make you a good student, a good child. That every loving parent disciplines their children. I read this over and over again. And that, again, is my experience with the Creator, is that the most profoundly meaningful experiences have been some of the most uncomfortable ones. But it is growth from that experience and knowing that I can trust him throughout, and that it changes me into the quality of person that I never imagined that I could even have hoped to have been, and still so far from where I see I ought to be. I can't get past the first 2 chapters of James. I read that and I go, man, if I could just do this, I'd have it made. Oh man, that's one for you this evening, Patrick. It's just spend some time in the first 2 chapters of James, and you'll know what I'm talking. I'm sure you already do know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I already do. James can convict just about anyone.
A tall order, right? That's why I say it's not complicated, but it's not easy. That's wow. I mean, and the more I dig into that, I just go, whoa, that is some deep insights into the nature of humanity. So, Patrick, what advice would you give to people who are well, I'm going to go with a couple of different places here. So I'm going to start here. What advice would you give to people who are, and I suppose I should preface this with the question, I'll just put them together and then hand it off to you, is first, the nature of your relationships and those around you, and then what advice would you give to people who do feel isolated and alone and ostracized and with no place to go or nobody to talk to? So the first part of that is, how are your relationships around you, family, friends? Do you have people around you in your neighborhood? And second, what advice would you have for people who are struggling in that area?
I don't really know that I'd be the person to ask about that, but I'll do my best to field your question. There are the majority of people that are around are part of the narrative. They don't really embrace any level of the truth. I do have one household in the neighborhood of people that are pretty awake and are open-minded to seeing through the lies. But by and large, it's very much an uphill battle in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. And with those that I try to kind of share some things with, the resistance is usually pretty high. Sometimes you get those people who, have their own curiosity and they ask questions, and typically answering them, they just look at you quizzically and say, "Did you get that from Facebook?" Or as if your source is the social media platform. A lot of times the sources might be accessible through those platforms, but the information is not sourced from the platform. So it's very difficult, and I don't know that I could provide anyone any advice. Just know in your heart that you're on the right track, and the people who are on the right track are oftentimes not going to be embraced by the whole. If you're loved by the world, then maybe you're not even on the right track.
I agree with that. So how much effort do you put into sharing information around you? Do you do as I do, which is I'm pretty quiet mostly unless people talk or ask about it, and then I'll share views if they're interested in it, not if they're challenging. I don't get into chess matches with pigeons. How much effort do you put into it?
Some. For people that I really care about, I really want for them to understand. For strangers that I meet in the public, typically if I go to a store and the worker is wearing a mask, I'll tell them that they don't have to wear a mask. You really don't have to do that. And I try to explain to them and point them to resources that they could access to understand that they're actually making that choice themselves. They're not being forced to do it. They're choosing to comply, and they don't have to make that choice. And it breaks my heart that they think that they have to, and it's really, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So I want to impart that knowledge to them. You can empower yourself by learning something, and here's where you can go with that. It largely falls on deaf ears.
Oh, but I love that approach, and I love your attitude about that too, Patrick, which is, hey, you don't have to, right? Instead of going, hey, you're a big pussy, right? I mean, it's, again, whatever works with the people. You got to know your audience, but I do love that approach, right? Is, hey, you know what? You don't have to. You don't have to do that. You can stand up, right, for yourself. You could do better, right? I love that. It's encouragement, right?
It's more compassionate.
Yeah.
It's because I really do feel it, in my heart for those people. You don't have to cause yourself to get cancer in 5 years or get pimples on your face or what have you. So I really feel like I do have compassion for them, more so than disdain. In the first few months, I was angry about it because I felt like all of these people complying are going to jeopardize the rights of everyone else. And I'm sure a lot of other people have felt that way too. But I've shifted that from the being angry at them about it to being compassionate and understand that they're just working from ignorance and fear.
Yeah. No, I so down with that. And I had that experience at first too, right? Being angry, right, about the whole thing, right? First angry at myself for having fallen for it, specifically when it came to cosmology, because it's such a big one. right? And then what fell out of that for me was history right away, right? I was never down with evolution or any of that. It was always, since I was a kid, it was like, no, that's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work in so many different ways. But yeah, the history that piled out of it, and fake history, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was angry at myself for having fallen for it in the face of incontrovertible evidence to the contrary of what the narrative was. I mean, you look at any of the megalithic structures and you're like, I mean, yeah, we've always known they were lying. But to put it together into terms of kind of how big the lie and what it means was a big one for me. And then angry at them for having done it, right? And then angry at everybody else in a way for going along with it. And for so many of us, and we just don't even challenge it. And then I came back, right, to the fact that I didn't ask those questions. I knew all the answers. I just didn't ask the questions. And that does, as you say, if you can put it in the right context, and certainly for me, so much of it has to do with the comparative contrast. When you have that relationship with your Creator, it gives you a measuring stick, if you will, something to understand what love is, right? And so taking then that approach out into the world where you say, but I'm compassionate for these people. I get that that they're under a spell, just like I was. Right. And the fact that I was, by his grace, however it occurred, able to break free of that spell doesn't make me better. It just makes me better suited to help others.
Yes. That's, and the whole thing, I always try to remember to maintain humility. The Bible says that knowledge puffs up, and we don't want to be puffed up. We need to make sure and keep our humility. Even though we know things that other people don't know, it doesn't necessarily make us special. It's just we're a vessel, and maybe we can be used, and we're much more likely to be used if we're able to do it humbly.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I've come to this place over the last few weeks in trying to get this message out too, is, if you knew all things, if you knew all the answers to all the conspiracies, and you were able to read every book in the Vatican archives, if we all agree, and many of us do now in this neck of the woods, that this is a spiritual battle. We are in a spiritual battle for your very soul. If that is true, and it does, all indications seem to be that it is, then knowledge doesn't really help you if it doesn't change you, if it doesn't help you win that battle. And all the tools of that battle are spiritual. So,
yes.
Right? So what does all the knowledge help you if you can follow alchemy all the way to transmute lead into gold, but it doesn't change your heart? How is it going to help?
Yes, you have to have the apply the knowledge, and that's wisdom.
Yeah, right. Well put, my friend. It is. Hey, Voynich, welcome. Good to see you. So just to touch back on that, he asked who you were again. So Patrick, go ahead and tell the folks again who you are, where you can be found, how they can find you. And what you're about. And then we'll kind of bring the plane in for a landing here in a minute. But repeat again for those who have joined late, who you be.
I be a hillbilly farmer from Tennessee.
Woo, doggy. with which I would love to have some more cold beer. And sit out on the back porch and smoke our pipes. No, okay. He would probably know you in chat as
Plateau, and you can also find me on Facebook. I have maybe 250 friends. It's Patrick, Patrick Nash, and my picture is me in my greenhouse with a pot on my head. It's a begonia flower pot.
Well, you're a pothead, so
I'm sure that. Yeah. My little brother said I should change that picture. He said people are going to call you a pothead.
You knew it.
And I said I've been called worse.
Yeah, right.
But yeah. Really, my YouTube channel is very small. I think I just crested 70 subscribers. I don't consider myself a content creator, but I do have some videos on there. I wrote a pretty cute poem about the pandemic back at the end of November. A number of people like that. I've got a video about that shows the glittery particulate of chemtrail fallout. I actually was able to catch it with the right circumstances, and you can actually see a quarter of glitter sized particulate out of the sky. That's probably that has the most views, but that's on those social media platforms. I'm on the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee. My YouTube channel name, Plateau, comes from Greek. If you look at Revelation chapter 20, verse 9, you'll see that they came up onto the breadth of the earth. And if you look up the Greek of breadth, it's the plateau, which comes from platus, and it means made, spread out, flat. So really, that's a flat earth name. I know a lot of people don't usually pronounce it correctly, and they probably look at it and it might be off-putting, but that's why the platypus is there on my icon, is because the platus is the root word for plate, plateau, and platypus, things that are, flat.
I like it. In fact, I dropped the link to your channel in the chat, and I'll see if I can show you this. There is his channel if you want to go take a look at that. I dropped the link in the chat, Plateau Platus, so we'll get you a few more subs. When you said you had like 70 subscribers, I'm like, oh God, good for you. Because my channel's existed for a few years, but I'm not out for fame and fortune by any means. I just use it as a vehicle to post things that are laid upon my heart. And there's, if you're into biblical stuff, or gardening, you might find things that are interesting there. And I do want to make sure that I recommend to everyone a book that I've read just recently, and it's very eye-opening. The book title is Rulers of Evil. The author say it again. Say it one more time. Hey, go back up and say it one more time, because you broke up just as you gave the title.
Okay, the title of the book is Rulers of Evil, and the author is F. Tupper, Tupper, Saussy, Saussy. So it's Rulers of Evil by F. Tupper Saussy. It's about 20 years old. The fellow put about 10 years of research into it, and one of the things that I kind of push, like Stavely, is the Mandela effect, and some people are just about flat earth or what have you. The crux of, or my focus a lot of times, is the Jesuits. I hope it's okay to use that word. The Society of Jesus came about in 1541 as Counter-Reformation measures.
Loyola, yeah.
And this book is very eye-opening about the history of the Jesuits and how they figure into so much of our history and how they've influenced it through the years. A lot of our major deceptions can all be traced back to Jesuits, whether it's heliocentric Earth with Copernicus, or it's germ theory with Girolamo Fracastoro, or the Big Bang theory with Georges Lemaitre. Evolution by Darwin was funded by the Freemasons, and the Freemasons, which I learned in this book, are basically the Protestant
wing
arm of the Jesuits.
Yes. Yeah. And they were, for, several hundred years, according to the timeline that we're given, were pitted against one another in the public eye, right? That the Masons were against the Jesuits and vice versa. And of course, we know that they're all run by the same guys. Oh, dear.
Exactly.
But yeah, you got it covered. I mean,
and
the Jesuits have been behind so many of, education. They basically took over all of education and the sciences, and they run pretty much that whole wing.
yes.
So I put that up on the screen. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you want to go ahead and put down the landing gear and let's touch down. That the timing is going to work out real well on my end.
Yep, that's perfect. Okay, so here I put it up on the screen, Rulers of Evil, Useful Knowledge About Governing Bodies. You can pick that up on Kindle for not too much. The hardcover version was $200 from as a collectible from Amazon, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Also, while I was there, I just pulled up The Unseen Hand, and that's from Epperson. And that's, again, available. You can find that actually at archive.org, I think, in PDF form. And so, hey, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today. I truly, truly appreciate it. It's been wonderful chatting with you. And again, any last words you want to leave with folks?
Thank you for listening. I thank you, Baldini, for inviting me on and allowing me to share with you and our family where I'm coming from, things that I know. If you are interested in some of the things that I've talked about and want to explore them further, reach out to me on my channel or on my Facebook page. I would love to have more connectedness to the people in our family. There were so many people at the Solar Return Festival. It was very difficult to get to spend time with each and every person. Also, you can't recognize faces a lot of times in person from our YouTube chat. So that I found that a little bit of a stumbling block when I first arrived at the park. I'm like, I only recognized maybe 2 people here. But ended up getting to know as many people as I could. So
Absolutely.
if you'd like to, I'm very open to making the connection if you're inclined to do so.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much, Patrick, for your time here and for your friendship. I really appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Okay. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Run.
Have a good day. Bye-bye. All right. So that's our friend Patrick Nash. Again, you could look him up on Facebook. He's Plateau on YouTube. And you can, again, find that there. So a quick preview next week. Super special guest. And as always, and again, I just wanted to point out that this is why he's here is the same reason that we started this channel, is to tell people stories. And I think that's important that we all connect and, build this community. I'm finding more and more every day that this has become the most important aspect of my life, really, is to be with you guys and to pursue this truth movement, if you will, whatever you want to call it, as far as possible. It's really the best thing going right now. That's for sure. All right. So next week, I'm going to, let's see, break this out. Oh, yes. So we'll come back here. So next week, somebody else met at the Solar Return Festival. And this would actually, he said he has never done this. It's not really his thing, but he is happy to do it for us. And so I'm so super excited to have Chief Crow. That's right, Chief Crow. Coming up next week, Unintended Consequences. Flying High with Chief Crow. We're going to find out about what makes him tick, how he got into this movement, and he is one talented individual. So super excited to have Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms coming up. So super excited for that. So again, I hope you join us next week. At the standard time, same bad channel for Unintended Consequences, but with our special guest, Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms. We'll get to some of his music in, we'll check out some of that, and get a little bit more about what makes a flat earthworm. So I think you're going to really like it. All righty, kids. And with that, I'll see if I can find some music to take us out with. It has been a wild and wacky day, as often happens around this neck of the woods. Woo! If you haven't yet, let me point you back over here too. Let's see. I did with Ceiling Fan Man. I did a little bit last night, and it was super awesomeness. I'll send you to the promo here. There's that in the chat. That'll take you to the promo, which has the link for the actual show that we spent a couple hours chatting last night. It was a blast. I always love hanging out with Ceiling Fan Man. Super great guy. Very amusing. He's got a twisted sense of humor like me, and so we can kind of do the little dance. It's a lot of fun. And anyway, I can't wait to head back over to your house and get excited, and then the wives can get into their sewing. He showed me last night, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot to do it during the show. She's sewing all this stuff," and I'm like, "Oh, that's so awesome." They're getting, it's like play dates for the wife. That's awesome. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so let's see if we can find some outro music. Oh, yeah. So I sent you over there. Got that. Good. Chief Crow, got that mentioned? Yep. All right. We're all set. Oh, did I mention that today is my daughter's birthday? She's the big 3-0 today. Going to call her right now and wish her a happy birthday, since I'm pretty sure she's not listening to this. Woo! All righty. I just want to say this. Thank you so much for your continued support, both financially and in prayers. I can really tell. When you guys are holding me up in prayer, and it's so meaningful to me. They give us a hard time about thoughts and prayers, right? Oh, keep your thoughts and prayers. But really, it's the most powerful way to manifest reality that I know of. And I think it terrifies them. So we got that going for us, which is nice. All right, kids. I will see you hopefully tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., bright and early, for Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World. We'll take a look at some Proverbs and probably something else to go with it. And we're back in the evening for Sola Scriptura. I think Wayne is available this week. I'll double check with him to make sure I'm not lying to you. See, I might be wrong, but I'll never lie. We got that. Thanks to everybody for being here today. I so appreciate it. Voynich and Rob and Melanie Moran, you're so awesome. Dr. Bass Ackwards, Annie D., Waters Above. It was so great to meet you, to see you again, actually. We met at Flattoberfest. But Big Bear and Jack the Giant Slayer, Stephanie Martin, Ben Flat, happy birthday again to Natalie. Great to see you. Sue Finelli, my friend, always a pleasure. And when we got Marika, hey, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Way Woke, I love that. Francis Sage, hey, it's good to see you. Juan Torres, you're awesome. Yeah, you know what? Here's another idea. I know this is probably better saved for tomorrow, but I mentioned something last night that it just popped in my head, and I thought, hey, wouldn't that be a neat idea? Is kind of tying up this, okay, so we're going to try to do this Flatober West thing. So going to try to, Ceiling Fan Man, you're too kind. Really, you are. But anyway, we want to do a Flatober West, just an opportunity for people to gather and do similar to what we did in the East. And some music, that sort of stuff. So Chief Crow and I are talking about that, talking to some other folks as well. And going to see if we can get some other musicians, maybe even get Jason and Rose up here. We've been talking about trying to do a Shoot the Moon thing up here for a minute. So if we could kind of put it all together, that'd be a pretty tight deal. But ultimately, what we want, in addition to, kind of had this vision, right, for the communal living thing. And it wouldn't just be one place, but a whole bunch of places, right, across the plain, where like-minded folks could pitch together and live out their lives with freedom. Until then, and while we work on that, one of the big things really that came out of Flattoberfest and this most recent Solar Return Festival is the opportunity to get together with people like Patrick, right? People like Chief Crow, people like Nathan and Karen, Ted, right? And all of us get together, and that positive energy is so intense. And somebody had said something about, it's like church, right? It's like better than church. And I was like, yeah, right. And one of the things that occurred to me as we were trying to pursue this idea, and I was just playing with it in my head of the way to propagate this and have a place that those who don't otherwise have the opportunity can get together with those around them, like local meetups, right? Is one of the models used in churches is called the house church, where people just get together, regularly in somebody's home, and somebody hosts, and it doesn't always have to be the same person or a regular place. Sometimes it's a coffee shop, sometimes a bar, where they can get together with other like-minded individuals and share that moment together. And so just consider the idea. Think about it. Think about whether you might be able to host or get together with other people in your neck of the woods. And again, just try to start I don't know, maybe Owen Benjamin's already done it with his Bear Taria thing. I don't know. I don't really listen, but this idea where we could get together with other people local and do it regularly, because the power of that and the energy in that is so amazing. I just can't overstate it, and I want to see more of it. And so consider the idea. Just kick it over, and see what comes to you. See if it's got the ring of truth to you. See if it tickles you a little bit, because I'd love to see it. That's right, the Poppy Cult. It's the best cult ever. All right, kids. With that, again, I won't take up any more of your time. I'm so delighted and pleased that you were here with us today, and hope to see you again tomorrow morning. And with that, I'll leave you with an old number, 1991, something like that, with Joe Ray. This is a later recording with me doing vocals. It's called In Your Eyes. And again, hope to see you tomorrow. Take care.
Remember the moment alone? Do you remember our heart left cold? I walk a lonely road until I find forgiveness. Do you remember that feeling inside? Do you remember the one left behind? I'll be there by your side if I could live forever. 'Cause I wanna find forgiveness in your eyes. I wanna live forever in your eyes. I wanna see heaven in your eyes. Do you remember the promises made? Do you remember the one who was betrayed? Trying to show the way to live forever. Do you remember the trust that was made? Do you remember that you wiped away? I'm waiting for the day that I see you in heaven. 'Cause I wanna find forgiveness in your eyes. I wanna live forever in your eyes. I wanna see heaven. I wanna see heaven in your eyes. The day it began. Do you remember just how far you ran, trying to save